show us as the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Hey, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Somebody hit somebody with a pie. Do something.
Giovanni yelling we're out of time as we go off the air.
Giovanni yelling a lot of things tonight.
And welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a sweaty edition of the Mark It Down podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, joined this week by James Asante. It has been 100 degrees here in New York for the last 3 days. I am dying. I have one room with an air conditioner in it. Thankfully, it is this room, so I'm not sweating here on the show. But yeah, it's hot, kids. Hotter than this episode of Dynamite, which was good, but we'll get into it. We're going to bounce around a little bit because this show was mainly about the Young Bucks. They were kind of the through thread through this episode. So after
Whoa. I think you mean the Founding Fathers.
The Young Bucks, the EVPs, the Founding Fathers. They have multiple names, and they're all acceptable. So we will skip the very beginning of the episode where after a brief attack, which we'll get into later, we went to the Young Bucks up on the Tron, and they were backstage. And they quickly addressed Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, who they said had a tag team match tonight. And that match was supposed to be in the second hour, but Matthew declares that they used their backstage influence to have their match moved up to now. That then led into Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland facing off against Lee Johnson and Blake Christian. Ospreay had his music immediately hit following the Bucks' statement. And he didn't get there for a little while, coming sprinting out, shoes untied, still taping his wrists, which was really funny. Got in the ring, though, to do the Ospreay with the crowd. And then Swerve was a bit more put together. He was, funny enough, putting his shirt on to take it back off. And he still had to line up his pads a little bit. But he was, since he was the more dressed, he ended up starting the match. A few minutes into said match, you had the EVP's music hit, and the Jacksons made their way out to the top of the ramp, and that was distraction enough for Ospreay and Swerve, and it allowed Johnson and Christian to get the advantage heading into commercial. As we say, how do you know it? We say, one AC unit, how the fuck do you live that way? And hi to you as well. I have more AC units. It's just that they are too heavy for me to put in my windows by myself.
All right. Chat, I've offered to help him before.
And he will ruin the shoulder he had surgically repaired.
I've got one left. Put me in, coach. I've got one left.
It's not going to work. Trust me. I can barely do it.
I'm similar. So I've got an AC in this office. I've got an AC in the bedroom. And I've got an AC in Allie's office. But the living room, the kitchen, the majority of the living space does not have AC units. Because it's just not structurally capable. God, it has been an ordeal.
I can't imagine. I need to call in some reinforcements. You know, it's saying he has 4 windows units and central air. That seems redundant. It seems like you are killing the environment, and there is no sin, no rapture greater than central air. Back to the match here. After this match ended with after Swerve getting the hot tag, he and Ospreay just came in and basically dominated with them winning following Swerve perfectly dodging a hidden blade, obviously meant for Lee Johnson. So Swerve dodges it. Lee Johnson gets taken out by Ospreay, and then Ospreay does the kip up. He gets Christian, lifts him up. Ospreay hits a thrust kick. Swerve follows that up, immediately dropping him into a brainbuster. And then he hits a house call for the win. More importantly, though, after the match, Swerve and Ospreay made a move towards the ramp, but the Bucks quickly got security down to prevent them from getting up. So Will convinces Swerve to return to the ring, where he grabs a mic and he says that everyone's been dealing with the Bucks bullshit for too long, especially him, even though he's had to only do it for a year, and he doesn't want to have to do it for another second longer. So he says that it's time for we, gesturing to Ospreay, to do something about it. And he challenges the Bucks to a match at All In, which I think we kind of all expected. Yeah. But as the Bucks protest, Ospreay grabs the mic and decides that they should up the stakes. So, and while the Bucks may be founding fathers, everyone is tired of them wielding that power as they've done more harm than good to this company. So Ospreay challenges them to put their EVP titles on the line at All In. This makes the Bucks irate, but they don't have much time to complain as Swerve hits a swerve stomp to the group of security guards and a referee, basically out of nowhere, clearing the path for him and Ospreay to pursue the Bucks. But the Bucks are able to quickly retreat to the safety of the back. So, James, I like this match. It was a good match. Once again, Lee and Christian doing a lot of good stuff here in the ring that I am enjoying. But obviously, this was more meant as a showcase for the tag team of Ospreay and Swerve, which then led to, as I mentioned, the expected challenge of the Young Bucks by this tag team, but with the added stipulation that I did not see coming of executive vice president titles being put on the line.
Yeah. Definitely a fun little wrinkle. I'm really conflicted because on one hand, I want the baby faces to win. Obviously, I want Swerve and Ospreay to win. On the other hand, I'm a big believer in established tag teams beating two singles guys. No matter how good Will Ospreay is, no matter how good Swerve is, the Young Bucks are the tag team of AEW. There are very few instances where they should lose. Even fewer where they should lose to two singles guys. On the third hand,
whoa, for free?
On the third hand, the EVP wrinkle is a really fun twist because I wonder what that does to the Bucks if they're no longer EVPs. If they are now just guys on the roster, it sets them up for a very different dynamic. So I'm not sure where I'm landing on this, but them adding that stipulation is a really, really fun way to throw a spin on this. And I don't think there's a really strong argument either way that it's obviously this team is going to win. So really cool.
Yeah, I actually think the stipulation really adds to the question of who's going to win this match for the reasons you just stated. While the Bucks should probably win, both because they're the established tag and because, having the, evil bad guy people in charge is usually the better play, having Swerve and Ospreay would be a lot of fun. Whereas I think if this was just a straight up match, having the good guys win at your biggest show is usually the way you end up going, especially with a storyline that's been going as long as this has. So
unpopular opinion on my end. I'm not a huge believer that your all-ins, your WrestleManias, all have to have the baby faces win everything. I agree. It should be end of storyline type situations, but this is very clearly not at the end of any real storyline here. Even if Mox loses to Hangman, that's not the end of the Death Rider story. If the Bucks lose to Swerve and Ospreay, it's not the end of the Bucks story with AEW, obviously. So I'm okay with the heels sometimes getting the win at the big end of year show or end of season show, but I don't know. This one really has me racking my brain just a little bit.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. I didn't think that was that unpopular of opinion. While these type of shows should end stories, they don't necessarily have to end, too many other things. I just think that had we not gotten this stipulation, it would have ended the story of Swerve and Ospreay and the Bucks and probably their alignment with Moxley, considering, I think he's going to lose, although a lot of people are afraid he's not. So that would have been my prediction, but with this added wrinkle, I really don't know, and I actually like that a lot. So I'm curious to see what happens in the next few weeks as we build up the storyline, and then maybe we'll have I don't want to even say a better idea, but maybe we'll have a little more information to make a more informed pick. Before we move on, I want to say hi to Fernando and Maria. What's going on to both of you? Glad you guys are able to join us once again. Maria's saying that her CEO let Timeless know who's the boss. And actually, I'm going to jump there because I think we should just go in order at this point. It makes a lot more sense chronologically. So before everything happened with the Young Bucks, we actually started the show with Timeless Toni Storm entering the arena. And as Excalibur was breaking the show down, Mercedes Moné came in off camera and just blindsided the two of them, taking Luther out as she shoved Tony into Luther, and he just is perfect at eating these bumps. And then she took Tony and continued to attack her all the way out to the top of the ramp. Mercedes then grabbed the mic and said that Tony wanted to play games. So here they are, you stupid little bitch. That was a quote, by the way.
Really inappropriate, Rev. Really inappropriate.
Yeah.
We're professionals here.
Fuck that noise. Monet then locked in the statement maker, and that led to the referee corps to come out. But Monet only relinquished the hold when the music of Mina Shirakawa hit, and she came out, followed closely by Luther and Christopher Daniels. Mercedes then grabbed the mic again, telling Storm that the games have officially begun. And then later in the show, we got Mina Shirakawa versus Mercedes Moné for next week at Dynamite 300. So this is a short segment, James, but I was glad they included it because you got this feud on the show again, even though it doesn't look like they had too much book for them this week. Yeah. But you set up the good match next week, and you just keep this story rolling because it's important to have this story there as it's one of the biggest matches on the card at All In.
It's one of those issues where we've talked about it before, that there tends to be a weird lull here between big shows as we're heading into All In.
Yeah. Especially this one. It was a long gap between the Double or Nothing and now All In.
So for AEW, you have to highlight what is quite possibly, if not your second biggest match, quite possibly your biggest match, depending on who you ask. It's obviously either Hangman Mox or Mercedes Tony for a lot of people. So you need to highlight them no matter what. But considering how long the buildup is here, and this is really just a story of the two best in the division going at it, there's not a lot of story here beyond that. So you don't want to be overly redundant. You don't want to just have segments for the sake of segments. So something like this where it's short and sweet and it builds the drama appropriately is the right way to go, in my opinion. So, good way to start the show. We had the power couple starting and closing the show with Mercedes and a certain lawyer in the main event. So, good way to get going. And I'm happy Maria, her girl, got to look strong tonight.
Yeah, and I think they've done a good job of pretty much one person wins one week and one wins the next, which is good. But I'm trying to think of how many more Dynamites we have. I hope we get a wrinkle soon. I think we have two more. Oh, well, only two more, yeah. So hopefully we get a small wrinkle in what happens between now and then. But I think they've done a good job of highlighting this while keeping it fresh. And Tony continues to dress up like Carmen Sandiego, which is just fantastic. All right, Maria's saying that CEO versus Timeless is the bigger match. And honestly, you could argue either way, and I'm not going to disagree with you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. This is what I'll say, Maria. If Hangman isn't beating Mox, this match should be the main event of All In. If Hangman is losing to Mox, these women should absolutely be the main event. But if Hangman is beating Mox, they should be the main event, because that story, while having its ups and downs over the last year or so, it's just been too big for AEW not to be the main event.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there are very few instances where Tony Khan will not have the men's title main events, although the Hollywood ending should have fucking main evented.
Absolutely. We all agree.
But it's just the way he books things. And I understand it. The men's title is usually the biggest title. But I think the combination of Tony and Mercedes has lifted the women's title up and then even too, like Tony and Mariah before, Mercedes got involved in a feud with Tony, it's lifted the women's title up to the equal of the men's title. So hopefully in the future, Tony Khan can see that and allow that title to main event over the men's title, but we'll see. I don't know if it'll be all in, maybe all out. I can see that maybe at all out. It's saying Luther is going to turn. That's the wrinkle. And he goes from Butler to Vice CEO. I think he would be the COO, the Chief Operating Officer. That would be my guess. And Fernando saying Sting beating Hogan didn't end the NWO. I don't expect Moxley losing to end the Death Riders. And I don't think neither do either of us. It's just, their motives are going to change. I think the first step would probably be a rematch and them trying to get the title back. And then, eventually they're going to have to find something else to do. But we'll talk about Moxley more in a bit. After the, let's call it the brouhaha between Swerve Ospreay and the Bucks, we had a quick video package for the return of Kota Ibushi to AEW. We then went to commercial and came back to another backstage promo from the Young Bucks. They are obviously pissed, but they had quickly noticed that Swerve took out a referee when he Swerve stomped everybody. So they suspended him for a week without pay and have him thrown out of the building. Okada then came up to the Bucks and introduced his new friends, and I put new in quotation marks there, of Rocky Romero, Trent Beretta, and Konosuke Takeshita. Rocky makes reference to all the fights in New Japan that they've had between Chaos and Bullet Club, saying it's funny that they're all on the same side now. Matthew says that despite everything, they've actually known and liked these guys for a very long time, even though Trent is a dick in real life. And so is Rocky. But it's their boss that they don't like, saying that he is a prick and that Roppongi should be careful with him. However, either way, there's one thing that they can all agree on, and that is helping Okada win the Unified Championship at All In, and that means hurting Kenny Omega, which is another thing they can all agree on. And in the meantime, since Kenny's not there, much to James's chagrin, what they can do is have Trent go out there and hurt his golden lover. Trent says that they should watch what he's going to do to Ibushi because he thinks the Bucks are going to like it. For he, Rocky, and the Bucks all fist bump, and they take their leave. However, Takeshita hangs back and goes face-to-face with Okada, reminding him that this is only temporary. Okada just laughs and says, okay, before walking off, and Takeshita stares at him. So, James, this was mostly to set up, the match heading in with Ibushi and Trent, but we did get a lot of good stuff here. It does appear that Okada is still cool with the Bucks, despite being aligned with the Don Callis family. So I guess he is still part of the elite. And B, we got the seeds of Takeshita not liking Okada being there and probably either prompting Okada's ejection from the family or Takeshita turning on them if Don is convinced that he needs to keep Okada around.
I truly believe we're going to get Omega Okada all in, Takeshita Okada all out.
I am all the way in, no pun intended.
I really think that's what we're going to get. I think ideally, Kenny is going to take the title off of, he's going to become the unified champion. Still don't like that, but he's going to become the unified champion. The Dynamite following, Don and Takeshita are going to attack Okada for losing. And then that's going to set up Okada versus Takeshita at All Out. And you could you could extrapolate that a little bit further, because we saw the Bucks say in this promo, we're happy to be working with you guys. We're all cool, but your boss, meaning Don Callis, is a prick. So watch out for that. So we've seen that the Bucks still haven't gotten over their beef with Don. And you could set up the Elite versus the Don Callis family. So lots of ways you can move forward with that. This has been slow building for a long time. Okada versus Takeshita. There have been teases. There have been face-offs for literally years in AEW now at this point. So super hyped for this match to be happening, to be teased. And quite frankly, I know this is going to sound crazy. If there's any match that could possibly keep up with Omega Okada, it is Takeshita Okada.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really good time to be a fan of Japanese wrestling. Just going to
we all know Okada's my guy. It's not Okada. I mean, I love Okada, but Takeshita's my guy. So getting the face off against Okada is just pure ecstasy.
You and I doing the fusion dance with our guys to take on Okada. Me with Kenny, you with Takeshita.
Yeah.
But going to the comments real quick, we have Fernando saying the return of the Golden Lovers. Yes. I cannot tell you. It's coming. The Golden Lovers are my second favorite tag team in all of professional wrestling, only behind the Hardys. So love that AEW is going to be getting a little bit more Golden Lovers. Maria saying after Kenny versus Okada, we have to get Okada versus Takeshita. Right there with you. Yeah,
you guys definitely on the same page with that.
Maria saying that she's confused about who Okada is with. I think the real answer is Okada is with whoever is going to be benefiting him at that moment.
Yeah.
I think he's the elite, but he's lined up with the Don Callis family for this Kenny feud. I think he's going to realign with the elite, but at the end of it, it's Okada on his own to an extent. You know, it's whatever benefits him.
Because this gives him the best shot of beating Kenny because Don knows so much about Kenny and his history and everything. Outside of the kayfabe, it's really to get Don on commentary, but for this match because he has to be. But yeah, no, I think in kayfabe, that's really what it is. And then James, I agree with you. I think you're right. After assuming Kenny wins, then Takeshita and Don will probably lead the beatdown of Okada, the Dynamite after All In. If not at All In itself.
You know it is with Maria about that series of matches. I can't open the comp. There you go. Am I still with you?
Yeah, you're a little laggy picture-wise, but your sound is good. I'll hop back in here. Maria is saying that Okada Takeshita is long-term storytelling, and it is one of the things that AEW is best at, even if it's a very slow burn like this, where there's just breadcrumbs sprinkled all throughout it. Like it's in your back of your mind, and you're just thinking, when are they going to pull the trigger on this? When are they going to pull the trigger on this? It's going to be so good when they do. And they're just building that anticipation up until the point where it is absolutely palpable. And then they finally give it to you just when you think they're not going to. To get things back on track here, after the Bucks reprise of their backstage promo, we did then go into Kota Ibushi versus Trent Beretta. This was actually Kota's first singles match in AEW, which was a little surprising. But I feel like he wasn't in AEW that long either.
He's only made sporadic appearances, but like he's been around enough that you would think he would have had a singles match by now. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he hasn't had one. I'll say Ibushi won this after hitting a massive running knee strike, followed by whatever the singles version of the Golden Lovers knee strike. I don't know. Do you know what that's called?
Not Bumaye.
Yeah, Excalibur said it, whatever its Japanese name was, and I wasn't trying to type that. While James figures it out, after the match, the coin dropped and Okada came down to the ring. Yep. Okada came down to the ring to go face-to-face with Ibushi. The two of them went nose-to-nose, but when Ibushi backed up and challenged him to bring it on, Okada quickly backed down and left the ring. And then Tony Khan quickly made Okada versus Ibushi official for next week at Dynamite 300. So, James, this is an interesting match for two reasons. One, Trent is pissed because on Twitter because he was like, this was my first match back in forever, too, and no one seemed to notice it. Plus, I shouldn't have had it because I spent the last 10 days getting married and eating good food in Italy, so this is bullshit. But shouts to Trent. This is his first match back in a really long time, and I'm glad to see him back. But obviously, Kota is still working himself back after all those devastating injuries to his ankles, his knees, to basically his entire body. And you have a lot more experience with him than I do. So I was wondering how you saw him, maybe not necessarily compared to his older self, but just generally how you thought he was moving, and whether or not this what felt to me like a slower, harder hitting match than maybe I was used to with Ibushi was perhaps a shift in style as he has to change it up a bit considering all of his injuries.
Yes and no. To an extent, Kota has always been a striker who also is a high flyer. He not the other way around. So a lot of his matches often incorporate strong style.
Right.
It's funny, we were talking about both these guys. You just mentioned even Trent saying this is his first match back. I was watching this in fear that who was going to be the first to break physically.
The first one to snap their neck loses. But I don't think Kota physically can snap his neck.
Oh no, his neck is indestructible. The rest of him less so. But
he's the opposite of Miro.
I was really excited to see these guys. I am a big Trent guy. I would love for him to get a sustained push. I know it's so hard just because of all the injuries, and it's really hard to invest in that. But I would love for Trent to get a sustained push. And I love Kota Ibushi. Ibushi is, for my money, one of the best wrestlers in the world when he's healthy and he's going at full steam. So to answer your question about, how did he look versus back then, back when, give it a little bit of time, but physically, this is the best he's looked in a long time. And more than that, he looked confident in the ring. It's going to take a little bit to, to find that groove again. But this was him looking very self-assured in the ring again. So I'm all for it. It's been a while since we've seen it. So I don't know where we go here. I don't know what's next. I would love for Ibushi to have a match, probably not at All In, but at All Out. And whether that's a Golden Lovers match or a singles match, I do not know. But there are a lot of guys that need to be in that Casino Battle Royal, and I would love for Ibushi to be one of them.
Oh, yeah, he's a great candidate for that. And again, he is facing Okada next week, so it's just everyone strap on your Japanese wrestling boots for the next few months. I'm really excited for that. But, yeah, I thought he looked good. I think confidence is a very good word there. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him move even more towards his striking and strong style stuff and away from the high flying for the most part. And he just only really breaks out the high flying stuff for the big moments and the big matches. So maybe we'll see it a little bit more next week and then not see it as much in his next match, depending on who he's facing or where it is. So, and I think that's smart of him I know he doesn't look it physically, but as he does age.
Also, to answer before, his finisher is the Kamagoya.
Gesundheit. So then what's the Golden Lovers version of that? Does that have its own name, or because that obviously became the BTE trigger, which is now the EVP trigger. Yeah. So I know those names, but I don't know what the Golden Lovers called it. Because Kenny uses whatever you just said too all the time. He doesn't necessarily use it as a finisher, but he does use it in his matches quite a bit.
I mean, realistically, their finish isn't really the knees. It's the double 450, which is the Golden Shower.
Oh, that's true. Also, hell of a name.
Yeah. They also have the Golden Armageddon, but I don't really remember what the knee is. Because, yes, you are right. They used what became the BTE trigger, the EVP trigger, was that they had that double knee also, but I don't really remember off the top of my head.
Because I think the Bucks stole it from them
during that golden trigger. The golden
trigger. I knew it was a something trigger. I just couldn't remember what it was. Because the Bucks stole it from them during the feud where it was Kenny and Ibushi versus the Bucks, and they were making fun of them, and that led to the Bucks using it to allegedly save their bodies, which, much like Chris Jericho, they say they're going to do this one move, and then they kept doing all the flippy shit anyway. All right. But I'm very excited for Ibushi Okada next week. And honestly, 300 is looking stacked just between those two matches that they announced at the top.
I'm so excited for the show.
Oh, it's going to be great. All right, following this, we got a pre-recorded Jon Moxley promo with him sitting on some dark steps. And Moxley makes a point of saying that Hangman isn't afraid of him or becoming world champion. What Hangman is really afraid of is being the person the world needs him to be. As a world champion who has walked the path that he has, Moxley is tired of Hangman's he called it emo crap, which I thought was really funny, and has no sympathy for his plight, saying that Hangman needs to step up and be that guy if he wants to win this match. Mox doesn't care about Hangman's inner turmoil, about who his friends may or may not be. Actually, he doesn't even care who Hangman's friends are. Like, doesn't give a shit at all. But he's going to just dump Hangman on his head over and over again before choking him out like he's never been choked out before. Actually, I did want to stop here on this really quick because this is finally, again, the thing I think Hangman's been trying to do with this character the entire time, which is get everybody in AEW to be the people they need to be to help this company succeed. And he's literally saying it that loud. He's like, Hangman, you got to stop being this insecure, person and just step up and be that guy. He's like, you could be the champ, but if you're not that guy, it's not going to mean anything. So I know sometimes Moxley's, words and what he's doing kind of get wrapped in all of his mystery and enigma and cryptic talk, but he was a lot more straightforward with this, and I think it's something he's sorely needed, probably for the entire time he's been doing this Death Riders run, but especially now in this build-up to All In. Okay, let's keep it rolling here. After commercial, we came back to a backstage interview with AR Fox that took place before Dynamite, where Renee asked Fox about what's next for him as he's gained some momentum recently. But before he can answer, he is interrupted by Ricochet. Comes on over and says that they've known each other for a long time. And as he's been looking for people to help him get gold in AEW, he's noticed that Fox seems like the perfect guy. So Ricochet asks Fox if he wants to team up tonight to take out Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight. And Fox hesitates. He doesn't seem too enthused by the idea, but he accidentally, as he's deciding, puts his hand out a little too far, and Ricochet grabs it, daps him up, and thanks him for saying yes, saying that a man never goes back on a handshake, and he leaves Fox kind of confused and unfortunately having to tag with Ricochet. That leads into our next match, which obviously is Jet Speed versus Ricochet and AR Fox. And I found the dichotomy of the entrances really funny because Ricochet came out and then Fox just kind of was forced to follow him. Like in Ricochet's music, he had no entrance for himself or anything. Meanwhile, Jet Speed has their own Tron now, and they came out in fairly matching gear. So this is going to be a tag team, at least for the time being. So I'll jump towards the end of this match where after Fox was able to hit a low main pain onto Speedball, each men started to head to their corners for the tag. And while Bailey is able to tag in Knight, Ricochet is deciding whether or not he decides to want to tag in and then decides he doesn't and jumps off the apron, hanging Fox out to dry. Knight quickly takes advantage of the tired Fox, hitting his sky high and follows that up with the UFO to pick up the win as Ricochet watched from the top of the ramp. So, James, we'll get into everything that happened afterwards, but this was a fun match, a lot of high-flying guys. I thought Fox looked great in this match, not surprising. He's been getting a bit more TV time lately, which I think is cool. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, who's Christian's partner again?
Lee Johnson.
Lee Johnson. All three of those guys who are kind of staples for Ring of Honor have been getting a little more AEW TV time, and I'm happy to see it. I thought this was exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
I like that Ricochet has been not necessarily aligning himself with people, but like we've been seeing him interacting with people that it's like any one of these guys could realistically be part of his crew, whether it was Leo Rush in that Fatal 4-Way or AR Fox here. These are all guys that if somebody pitched them as his backup, I would buy it. I could see it. So it would be a real fun story to tell that the problem is just Ricochet. Like he has people that would be interested in being with him, but he just drives them all away because he sucks as a person. But I'm loving Jet Speed. They really have, unfortunately, all of the trappings of a tag team that are just there to put other teams over, because they are a likable, fast-paced team that you can rely on to have a fun match, but eat a loss. So, like, as we're going to see it against the Hurt Syndicate, like, we're all expecting it.
Yeah.
So I hope that's just not what their destiny is in AEW. Especially because so many people have started to really fall in love with Speedball. So, and I'm sure they will with more time for Night as well. But this was good. I missed a little bit of it. Won't get into the reasons why. But I missed a small amount of it. But I enjoyed what I saw, and just happy all four of these guys are getting good TV time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like you said, this was done perfectly. Ricochet being the asshole and leaving Fox high and dry works perfectly. Jet Speed getting another win, as it seems like they're going to end up challenging for the tag team titles, works out very well. I wish there was a bit of a moment where they went up to Fox and basically apologized, or have been like, yeah, like Ricochet's a fucking asshole, something like that. But they kind of just left him on the side of the ring dejected. And I don't want to say it was out of character that they just left him there, but usually the good guys in AEW would be like, yeah, like, good match, sorry, Ricochet's a dick. But either way, I am enjoying Ricochet's quote unquote tryouts the last few weeks. Those have been a lot of fun. But speaking of the tag titles, after the match, Tony Schiavone came out to interview the victors at the top of the ramp, and they say that the tag team championships have been held hostage for too long. Side note, guys, have you seen the World Championship? Don't use the word hostage if it hasn't been that long. Anyway, they say that they tell the Hurt Syndicate that they're coming. But the Hurt Syndicate get there first as they come out from behind the stage and blindside Jet Speed and almost kill Schiavone with Bobby Lashley and my man Shelton Benjamin beating them all up and down the ring. MVP and MJF then run to the back and bring out a table, and Bobby puts Bayley through Knight, who had been laid out on it by Shelton. MVP then grabs a mic and has the tag titles brought out for the champs before having the monkeys in the truck hit their music so they can head to the ring and properly conduct business. This then leads to an official announcement from the Hurt Syndicate, where MVP begs for somebody in the tag division to stand up to Bobby and Shelton, before saying that if Speedball and Knight can stand up after that beating, he'd be willing to give them a tag team shot at All In if they can walk. MVP then turns the mic over to MJF, who reminds us all that he unmasked and quote-unquote defeated Mystico last week, before telling all of us that he'll be entering a qualifying match for the Casino Gauntlet match at All In, which is shocking because MJF doesn't like doing work. And when he wins that match, he'll be one step closer to getting back his AEW World Championships, which does not belong to either Dictator John or Crooked Cowboy Hangman. MJF then says to hit their music, but Mark Briscoe's music hits instead, and he comes out to tell MJF that he's once again talked too long, and the director had to hit his music so that he can go out and get them out of the ring and have his match start. MJF responds that he doesn't care what time it is because they're stars, unlike Briscoe, and he begins to run down Briscoe in the crowd a bit before telling Mark that if he gets in the ring, when he gets in the ring, he's going to do what he always does, which is lose. Briscoe says that he understands where all these hurtful comments are coming from, considering MJF's bullied past, before telling everybody that the word of the day is empathy. And Mark tries to empathize with MJF, saying he thinks all of his insecurities must come from somewhere, some sort of inadequacy, before eventually just coming out and saying that the reason MJF is probably such an asshole is that he's had to walk around with a tiny kosher pickle in his pants for 30 years, saying it's no wonder he wants to hang around with the Hurt Syndicate. MJF starts to go off, but MVP reins him in, saying this isn't business, so they're going to leave the ring, go to the back, and watch Briscoe do what he always does, which is lose. So, James, I like this. They did a really good job of interconnecting a lot of the different segments tonight, because we went seamlessly from the Speedball Mike Bailey Kevin Knight match into their promo, into the Hurt Syndicate's promo, into then that four-way match, which we'll get to in a minute. But we did basically set up the tag team match for Jet Speed against the Hurt Syndicate at All In. I know MVP said they have to walk first, but we've been teasing it for a while, and that seems like a pretty, overt, not challenge necessarily, but overt statement that it's going to happen. Yeah. And MJF has another thorn in his side in Briscoe, who absolutely cooked Max tonight. So I enjoyed this quite a bit.
I did too. Look, we've been talking about it for a while. Mark needing to be treated a little bit better, both in the wins column and just in general. For a guy that they so very clearly value, it doesn't always feel like it. So I really like this. It was another dynamic. It was another layer to Mark because we don't always expect him to be the promo guy. Like, we know he could deliver funny promos. We know he could deliver fun sound bites. But this was an example of him outdoing somebody on the mic. And MJF is no slouch. So really cool moment for Mark. And like you said, just a really great way of transitioning everything together and everything feeling somewhat seamless. MJF is definitely going to be in that battle royal.
The Gauntlet match, you mean?
Yeah, the Gauntlet match. He's absolutely going to be in the Gauntlet. I don't think winning, but I could see it because he's been interacting with Hangman enough. So we'll see, but everybody here, I feel, is going to have some role to play at All In.
Yeah, I obviously agree. And I think I found it very interesting that you had been complaining for the last few weeks or so that Briscoe keeps losing. And I found it very interesting that they actually used that tonight. So yes, my presumption is that there was a reason that he had been losing so much. And I know you don't like it, but it did lead to this. And then we'll get to it in a minute, but it did lead to his win. So
I am all for that. But let's spade a spade. He's been a perennial loser in AEW. Like the Continental Classic that he was in, he had one of the worst showings in the win-loss wise. Yeah. He had one of the worst showings. And it's one of those things that, yes, we can now sort of make lemonade out of lemons with that. And maybe the last couple of weeks have been highlighting that so they could build that up for this match and for this little promo and this moment. But this has gone on a lot longer.
Yeah, hopefully Mark can get some sort of winning streak out of this. Probably following the Casino Gauntlet. I don't necessarily see him winning, but
my ideal scenario is that Adam Cole drops the TNT title to Fletcher, and then down the line Fletcher drops it to Mark. That's my ideal, trajectory.
Yeah, I'm absolutely here for that. I think that'd be pretty cool. Also, when life gives you lemons, say fuck the lemons and bail.
That just sounds so uncomfortable, though. You ever fuck the lemon?
No, you don't fuck the. You say fuck the lemons and bail.
I don't want to fuck the lemon,
dude.
Man.
Take it up with Paul Rudd, man. I didn't fucking invent that line. Anyway, we're putting a pickle emoji in the thing, saying it was a good line from Mark. And going back to Maria here, she thinks that it should be FTR versus the Hurt Syndicate at All In, saying that this tag championship being Speedball or Jet Speed, excuse me, against the Hurt Syndicate is too small for All In. And I'm not going to 100% agree with you, but I will say it is kind of weird that you don't have FTR or the Bucks facing off for the tag titles at All In. But at the moment, I don't think you want the Hurt Syndicate to lose. And you don't want FTR or the Bucks. Well, you don't want FTR to lose. And we'll see what ends up happening with the Bucks in their match. But you definitely don't want FTR to lose at the moment. Even though whatever they're doing is just kind of weird.
Yeah, it definitely weird. I'm going to slightly even disagree with you a little bit. I'm glad that it's not FTR or the Bucks because AEW should establish other top tier teams. Once we get to All In season, we shouldn't inherently be like, How are we going to get the Bucks into a tag title match? How are we going to get FTR into a tag title match?
Very fair.
The problem, though, is it shouldn't be Jet Speed either, because they're a new, young team. And while they're liked, they don't have a ton of momentum. But as we've spoken about several times here on the pod, the AEW tag team division is very thin right now.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of teams of note that should be going for those tag titles. So you're in that awkward stage that there needed to be somebody in between the Bucks and FTR and Jet Speed that would have been a realistic challenge for the tag titles. And I think going further into that, when it comes to FTR in particular, I think we can all agree this was being heavily, like, the speculation, the writing was on the wall that we were supposed to get Cope and Christian versus FTR. But according to reports, Christian has been pushing back against that because he feels he's not done with his story with Nick Wayne, which I actually completely agree with. That story has not reached its proper climax, but one we probably should have by now. What?
I was going to say Mother Wayne definitely.
I knew it. I bonk. It should have reached its climax by now. And I would, while I very much think it's more important that that story finishes, I'd be lying if I said that it feels like we're missing something at All In without Cope and Christian versus FTR.
Yeah, especially considering shortly after that All Out is in Canada, and you would think that would have been a perfect setup. But we could talk about Christian more later because he definitely has a plan for their future, and he laid it out on Collision, and they talked about it a bit later on the show. But yeah, you're right. Like, there's just, I wish there was the middle gap between the Bucks and FTR and Jet Speed, but there really isn't. And then also too, the gap between the Bucks and FTR and then the team after Jet Speed is so much bigger.
Yeah.
No, so
true.
They are literally the third best option that you have in the tag team division because it is that weak. But they're a hot team, and if they're going to go out there and put on a hell of a show against the Hurt Syndicate, I guarantee you that, and it'll help elevate them if they want to keep those two guys in the tag division for the time being. Because then you can get really cool matches with them against FTR or the Bucks or whatever.
I'm looking at a list of the tag teams in AEW right now, and
it's weak.
Let me tell you, no, it's not weak. It's
non-existent.
actually it's pathetic. It is like, all right, are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
2.0.
Yeah, but Cool Hand Ange hasn't been there forever.
No, he's been back.
Oh, has he? I haven't seen him.
He's been back. Blade Christian and Lee Johnson. Butcher and Blade, which, okay, I don't know if the Blades wrestled in over a year.
I thought he retired.
Nobody knows.
I know Bunny did.
You have the Crew.
Yep.
You have the Dark Order.
Yep. Johnny Silver just came back, so.
Yep. But still, no. Like, I love them to go.
Yeah, and they've also mostly been on Ring of Honor as well.
Yeah. You have the Death Riders as a team. You have the Don Callis family, which, all right, all things considered, Archer and Cage were a team we did want to see versus the Hurt Syndicate, but injuries messed that up.
And you also have Roppongi RPG now, as I think they're being called, so you could throw them in there. And
they're on the same level as Jet Speed, that they're not a team that should be going for the tag titles at All In.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, they are actually an established tag team. They're just, you're right, they're just not up there.
You have the Bucks. You have the Frat House, which, Jesus Christ.
Fun jobbers, though.
You have FTR. You have the Gates of Agony. You have the Guns. Now, here's a team that I'm going to say that could have done it, but one man has been MIA for a while. The Hounds of Hell.
Yeah.
But Buddy's just been gone.
His ankle's not healing right. He did an interview last week.
It's healing so well that he's going to show up in WWE. Yeah,
I actually don't believe that.
I absolutely think he wants to go back to WWE. I think he wants to be with Rhea. You have Jet Speed, which we're seeing. You have the Learning Tree, which I think you could have built. I think you could have gotten there, but we already did that.
They are building them, admittedly.
God, this is bad. The Outrunners, but whatever.
I'll say, I know you're doing them alphabetically, but Maria asking a good question, and where is Private Party?
They're at the end, but we're getting. Well, I mean, Maria, I'm sorry to tell you this. Reports are that Private Party's contracts are running up very soon, and WWE has expressed interest.
Yeah, and Tony has not expressed as much, reportedly.
Yeah. RPG Vice, Shane Taylor Promotions, the Sons of Texas. No thank. I mean, we already had that match. It wasn't great.
Yep. It was better than I expected it, or I think a lot of people expected it to be.
It was
I had
all
a
right.
lot of fun with it.
Top Flight, no.
Already had it. Pretty sure.
Do I think that you could have gotten there? Sure, but no. So AEW needs a tag team signing in the worst way.
Yep.
I just don't know who's available.
Maria, bring up the Grizzled Young Veterans. They've been in and out of AEW.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
They just have to be there consistently enough to build them, and they're just not.
It's going to be Cope and Christian because there's just not another team believable enough to do it.
Yeah. And then eventually FTR will probably take it off of them.
Yeah.
We're also saying FTR and the Outrunners better not be at all in. That would be so lame. And it's saying that she's right. Those are Dynamite matches.
I could see it happening at All Out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we also have a couple of weeks. It might even be next week, on Collision 100. Because, they're, because they're facing off. We'll talk about it later, but they're having their little face off on Collision. I think it's tomorrow, actually, because of some sport. And then so they could just have their match at Collision 100. So hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully it's that, but it seems like it would be that. Right, let's get the show back on track here. We had our next match, which was a four-way match for the number one spot in the men's casino gauntlet match at All In. And it saw Konosuke Takeshita face off against Mark Briscoe, Roderick Strong, and Bandido. Jumping to the end of this match, Bandido took out Takeshita with a 21-plex, but Takeshita was able to roll out of the ring. So then Bandido went for the tope, but Roddy Strong intercepted him with a knee strike and followed that up with an end of heartache. However, before Roddy can get into the pin, Briscoe had gone up to the top, and he came flying in with a froggy bow to hit Roddy and then pin him for the win, and he gets the number one spot at the Casino Gauntlet match at All In. So, James, this match rocked, especially all the stuff that happened post-commercial. It was basically everything that happened from when Bandido went up to the top to go for the frog splash, and then Takeshita pushed him off and went up to the top, and then Briscoe pushed him off and hit the froggy bow on Roddy. Everything following that hit on all cylinders. Guys were taking out each other left and right.
Yep.
Takeshita hit that, they called it a 42-plex, where he suplexed Bandido and Briscoe at the same time. Guys were just striking the hell out of each other. This was awesome.
I completely agree. These were the right men for this matchup. Takeshita tends to do well in multi-man matches. I mean, he tends to do well in all types of matches, but he has a very fun style for multi-man matches. Mark getting the win is just incredible.
And
it was great. It was really great to see. Bandido, I don't want to say carried the match, but he absolutely I feel like he was sort of the branch for this. Yeah, the through line. Thank you. I was really struggling there. I think it was the through line for this matchup. And Roderick is Roderick. Goes without saying.
Yeah.
Just incredible worker. So all four of these guys really did play their part well. I was gonna say this was match of the night, but truth be told, the women might have challenged them for that.
Yeah, they were good.
Their Fatal 4-Way, both Fatal 4-Ways were just fantastic. Both, though, did have something that I wasn't friggin' thrilled with.
Okay, what was it for the men's?
I mean, for the same thing, Ring of Honor World Champ and Ring of Honor Women's Champ, both in the match and both not getting the win.
Okay, that's fair. I thought, you know what? I saw that happening. I was like, James is going to be annoyed by this.
I mean, less so with Bandido because we love Bandido, but it's not.
But he's not the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion of all time.
Yeah. Athena, though, that's just disgusting. We all know that the Ring of Honor belts don't have the same weight as the AEW belts.
Well, yeah, they're much smaller, so they're lighter. Sorry.
No. That's my fault, not yours. It's my fault. I just wish that both champs were treated with a little more respect. But fun matchup, and the ending with Mark celebrating and MJF and the Hurt Syndicate watching in the back was a fun little touch. Nice way to circle back.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy Mark punched his ticket to All In.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about that. I'm very curious to see who number 2 is going to be. It almost leads me to believe that it'll be MJF.
I disagree.
But he could also be the last guy.
Yes.
As well.
Mark is going to run the gamut. He is going to go through the entire matchup, and then that's when MJF comes in and he's going to get the win.
Perhaps even pinning Mark just to really, drive the needle in. As Maria gives him congratulations. Yeah, he deserves it, man. This is a good win for him, and he's being the first guy out of the Casino Gauntlet. Like, it's a prominent position on the All In card, and he's going to get a big pop there. So good for him. All right, following this, we got a quick backstage promo from Adam Cole, who's still really pissed off with the Don Callis family. And quick side note, Don not there tonight. It was noted by commentary.
They said that it was because he was afraid of who?
Ibushi.
Ibushi.
Because Ibushi went after him on Collision when he made his return. So
yeah, I love that.
Don's scared. Anyway, Cole called out the family, issuing an open challenge to any member of the family for his TNT championship on Collision. Spoiler: it will not be Kyle Fletcher because that's happening at All In. But this definitely feels like a Lance Archer position.
Oh, what, for tomorrow? No, we already know who it is.
Oh, somebody agreed to it. Who was it? My apologies.
Josh Alexander.
Oh, even better. Yes,
I'm bummed
I forgot
because
he was there.
Thank you. Josh has become the fall guy for the group, which fucking sucks.
Yeah,
but the match is going to be fantastic.
Oh no, I very much expect that to be a very good match. I didn't mean I forgot he was there. Like, I just kind of forgot he was in the family because it is so big now. But yeah, I almost would have rather seen Archer than Alexander, just because I don't want to see Alexander keep eating pins.
I love Cole, but him beating Archer would be
you're
going to be suspending some disbelief there.
Yeah, that is fair.
To be fair, I figured it out watching that promo why I feel so blah about Cole. And I get why it is. It needs to be done.
It was because he was far too pale in this promo.
I mean, obviously. The guy either overtans or undertans.
He's got to start hanging out with the Bucks again.
He is just so far removed from anything important in AEW. Like, the central heartbeat of AEW storytelling right now is the Death Riders.
Yeah.
And Cole is just so far removed from that. So whether he's on Dynamite or on Collision doesn't matter. He just feels like he's doing things that aren't important. And that's a bummer.
Yeah, and there's part of me that's like, all right, I understand maybe keeping him away from Kenny and the Bucks and Hangman and everything. But a guy like him, or at least his character at the moment, who so much loves AEW, you'd think he would be getting involved in some of this because of what Moxley has done. But instead, he's just kind of caught up in his own little world with the Don Callis family and everything. And even then, Callis tends to avoid the Moxley situation, but he does that strategically, and it's kind of been talked about. Like, he's like, I don't want any part of that because I just don't want that smoke.
and I get that, and it works because you don't want the skills in fighting. I get that, but Kenny is facing Okada, and granted, it's Kenny and Okada. There's no way that isn't going to feel important. But even when Kenny was going after Takeshita, it felt important.
Yep.
This does not feel as important.
Which sucks because I want to see Fletcher win this title and I want it to feel important. And he's beating somebody who I think Maria makes a good point here. Beating somebody who feels like he's on a lower level than Mark Briscoe.
1,000%.
Which, I mean, shouldn't make any sense because Cole holds a title, but Briscoe is involved in main storyline stuff. He helped at Anarchy in the Arena. He fought Moxley a couple of times following that. Now he's getting involved with the Hurt Syndicate. Like, he is prominently on your TV. Even if it's not a consistent storyline, he's mixing it up in the most important ones. Whereas Cole is kind of in his own little Cole-verse, unfortunately.
I think the reality is you could have easily... We're going to see it. When Fletcher beats Cole for the TNT title, we're all going to say he could have just beaten Garcia for the title.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think the Cole match might be a little bit better than against Garcia, but the only thing is you got Cole's name on that lineage. That's, his defenses have been
Cole needed the title more than the title needed Cole.
Yeah, and it's done nothing for him.
And I think the title needs Fletcher.
Yeah, because I don't think Fletcher needs the title, but it does propel him.
Yes, absolutely.
Further. It continues his upward trajectory. And him getting the title will put it in prominent positions again because he's with Don, and Don is just automatically a prominent position because he is such a heat magnet.
I think the best we could hope for when it comes to Cole is that he and Paragon maybe take the trios titles off the Ops, whether that means a heel turn or just a mutual respect babyface matchup, sure. But my man, we are going way too long without a world title in a major company.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is Cole, I've said it week in and week out, he needs a character change. He just does. He's been the same guy for 10 years.
I just don't know what you turn him into.
I don't even think you turn him into something, but he just needs a new layer,
Yeah.
Hell, make him Ring of Honor champion again. I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know we disliked him. I didn't know that we were mad at him. But okay.
I'm not mad at him, but it might help. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what to do with him right now, which sucks because Adam Cole used to be the man. I have two undisputed era armbands.
OG and then
the Roddy one.
Yeah.
They should be right here. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're in my sock drawer. My sock drawer is in my desk, so it worked out. All right, let's keep things rolling here as we got to the women's side of the four-way match for the Casino Gauntlet, which was Willow, Nightingale, Athena, Thunder Rosa, and Kris Statlander. Jumping towards the end of this match, as Thunder is looking to possibly finish Statlander off, Athena pulls her out of the ring and yells at Billy Starks, who was with Athena, to go get her title. However, Billy takes a little too long, mostly because, according to Taz, Justin Roberts wouldn't give her the title. So that allowed Thunder to throw Athena into the steps. Rosa then brought Athena to the top of the steps, and whatever she was trying to do, Athena countered it, and she hit a suplex to Thunder off of the stairs, taking both of them out as Billy looked on. Back in the ring, Willow was able to hit a cannonball in the corner onto Statlander and then tried to lift Stat up, but Stat countered. Marina Shafir then came down the ramp to the ring, distracting Willow as Wheeler Yuta snuck in the ring behind her. Wheeler spun Willow around, tried to hit her with a right. Willow ducked it and then hit the ropes before coming in and just absolutely nailing Yuta with a pounce. And real quick, shout out to Yuta for taking multiple of these pounces and being willing to just absolutely eat shit from multiple women now in this Death Riders run. However, despite Yuta getting fucked up, the distraction was still able to work as Statlander recovered and surprised Willow after the pounce, getting her up and hitting Saturday Night Fever, I think we're still calling it that, for the win and that number 1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet match. After the match, Statlander looked kind of surprised, but like okay about what happened with Marina being there, while Marina seemed very satisfied with her work. So James, this match also rocked. There was actually even a spot in it, and it only stands out to me because it kind of almost looked like a botch, but I don't think it was, where I think Thunder had somebody up on her shoulder, Athena up on her shoulders, and it looked like Statlander was going to hit a Doomsday device. Yeah. And Thunder kept spinning, and eventually fucking Stat came over and just shoved them over. And I was like, did they screw that up? And I was like, you know what? I don't think they did, because if they makes wrestling look like the mess that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Whether it was a botch or not, it was a good pivot.
Yeah.
It's a fun pivot. I really enjoyed this matchup. There was a sequence early on where the women are basically just flowing into one another, where they were doing either head scissors or hurricanranas, and they're all landing on their feet into the next woman, and it was a great spot. And I think it showed the athleticism of these women so well, these athletes so well. I want to agree with Maria. Finally, Athena was allowed to be on Dynamite. This should happen a lot more often. I agree, but for the love of God, let her get wins.
Yeah, right.
For the love of God, let her get wins. Maria also saying that it's not right that Athena is not in All In yet, because she's from there. I agree.
So we're seeing reports about this. I think the report was, I want to say it was for Fightful, but I could be wrong, that the current rumor is she might actually be defending the Ring of Honor Women's title on All In instead of Supercard of Honor. There's a rumor about that. There was also, people were then speculating she might defend both nights and da-da-da-da-da. But either way, I'm pretty sure she's defending against Thunder Rosa. That's the storyline they've been writing. And they are both from Texas, so the match works on either card because I think of how big it is, and because of their roots. But I don't hate it being on All In, but I think it kind of takes away from Supercard of Honor just because there's a glaring hole in that card.
I agree. It's rough, buddy. All that said, I'm really into this story with Stat. I really want to see her in the end resist the dark side.
Yeah,
and still end up teaming with Willow. Although at a certain point, this might be unpopular. At a certain point, Stat is just right to be done with Willow, because how many times can you get rejected for the apology?
But Willow's also kind of right to be done with Stat.
100%. 100%.
Frankly, I'm okay with them being cool with each other at the end of all of this, but can we get them away from each other for a little while? Like
unless they going on a long time. Unless they become a tag team, because the rumor is I'm getting my wish.
Yep.
And we're getting these women's tag titles. They should be the inaugural tag champs.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Who would you put?
No, you're right. It's just like, it's a weird thing where I'm like, man, this has been going on forever. It should probably end, right? And maybe I'm just being, trying to throw out the hot take of end it. But like, I'm still kind of enjoying it. And the new added wrinkle of Marina and Yuta trying to corrupt Statlander is interesting. But
that's gonna be the finals for the women's tag titles. It's gonna be Marina and Yuta versus Willow.
I mean, Yuta's hair is long enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm for this leading into them winning the tag titles. In the end, I just want the Vendetta to win the tag titles, but that's a different story for a different.
Gotta get Deanna Praza on TV first.
Fucking yes. Nope, never mind. That's a tangent. We'll get there eventually.
She was playing with those kittens though on the AEW social media page, so at least she's traveling with them.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I very much enjoyed this matchup. They told a lot of different stories here. Thunder just feels so displaced.
Yeah, I mean, she sounds like she's doing good work on Ring of Honor.
No, she does. She does. But this is a former women's champion who feels like, unfortunately, she's part of a bygone era of AEW.
Yeah, a little bit, right? And I feel bad, but so much there was such a big shift during her injury.
Yep.
That like the entire women's division just was it was a completely different place when she came back, and she's had a bit of trouble finding her spot in it, which is why actually I think Ring of Honor has been a really good spot for her, because she's a much bigger fish in a smaller pond there, as opposed to being kind of lost in the shuffle on AEW. So
I agree.
Maria asking, will the Willow versus Marina match ever happen? It should, but
it should have by now.
Yeah.
If we don't get it moving forward, I don't care anymore. They've already wrestled so much. The only reason I could see it happening is for the Statlander aspect of it, where Stat makes the decision on who she's going to help.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Yes, Maria, I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to come down to Stat making her choice.
She just takes both of them out.
Yeah, right.
Maybe. Also, Maria thinks that Thunderstorm should be the first tag team champs.
Excuse me.
Thunder Tits.
Thunder Tits. Apology for the vulgarity, Maria.
Yeah. Maybe, but I think Willow and Stat have so much more history. I feel like they are the right call.
And truth be told, I think if Tony is going to go for the tag titles, which at some point I'm sure she will, because they're going to need to transition her from the world title at some point.
Yeah, to something else.
I could see it being her and Mina before I see it being her and Thunder.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then the final comment here from Maria. Where's Jamie Hayter? She unfortunately got a concussion. And it's apparently not a very good one. That's why they had Thekla write her off. Better question is, where's Thekla been? But I guess Collision.
I am still fascinated. Did you realize that we missed it when we were talking about Thekla versus Queen Aminata? That there was a lot of drama at the end of that match.
Yeah, so we were talking about it, and we were trying to figure out why it felt off.
Yes.
And apparently it was Aminata allegedly just no-selling and sandbagging the hell out of her.
Yeah, which is surprising because Aminata has built up a good reputation backstage as somebody that you can rely on.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that was, but fascinating. Like we were talking about the match, something feeling off, and I still think all the things we raised about the match made sense, but we just missed all that drama at the end.
Yeah, no, it unfortunately all came out after we did the episode, so we didn't really have time to comment on it.
Yeah.
/ Thekla hasn't been on Dynamite / Grand Slam the last couple of weeks, so we haven't had really had a chance to bring it back up. But yeah, that was weird. I mean, some people were like, "No, that's just how Aminata works," and they couldn't really figure it out. But I mean, looking at some of that shit, I don't know what was up, but yeah, it definitely looked like she wasn't really cooperating in the ring. Maria's saying that Aminata has a right to be frustrated. She should be booked better. But, I mean, she's somebody on the rise, whereas Thekla's coming in as a top free agent. I understand why she would be upset, but know your role, not to be the Rock here.
It's a job. You got to do your job.
And B, if you want to continue your rise, go out there and, make your opponent continue to look good, because that'll make you look good to management, and they'll continue your push, which you have been getting.
We didn't like it when Austin Aries did it to John Morrison. We're not going to like when someone else does it here. That's just how it goes.
You should have just thought that we didn't like Austin Aries.
No. I used to love Austin Aries.
I know.
Broke my goddamn banana heart.
It's saying that Thunder Rosa perhaps as a heel might work better since she comes off a bit heelish anyway.
You know what? I feel. Go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe should switch up the face paint a little to something darker. Make the music darker. She has a side where I think she could bring it out and be a good heel.
I feel like they teased the heel turn a year ago.
Yeah.
And then it just nothing happened. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, that's why I think she would be a good one, because there were those hints, and I was like, okay, I can get behind this, and then they just never followed up on it.
Yeah.
After this, we had a quick video package for the patriarchy, where Christian was saying that he's starting to appreciate all of Nick Wayne's hard work. and he's put everyone on notice that he's planning for them to become the first father and son tag team champions, starting with facing off against Big Bill and Brian Keith on Collision. So, sorry to Big Bill and Brian Keith, who they were building. That's going to stop for a second. There were rumors, James, along with those women's tag team championships, that they had made father-son gimmick tag titles. So this may or may not be coming down the road. I guess we'll see as we continue to push Christian and Cope to the back burner. I guess we'll find out. We then go to a FTR and Big Stoke backstage interview where Renee asked about the Outrunners coming out last week to break up their beatdown following their win on Collision. And Big Stoke says that FTR is too devastated to talk, so he will. And then he had suggested that as recompense, they should have done some good old school fashioned vandalism. But FTR were much more level-headed and suggested a meeting in the ring on Collision with the Outrunners so that they could all see where they stand and work that all out. So that'll be tomorrow, I think. That led us to our main event, which saw Hangman Adam Page face off against the Beast Mortos, who surprisingly has been getting a lot of work the last few weeks. Anyway, jumping to the end of the match.
Thank you. Right. I didn't want to say it, but right.
I look, he's super over. So does it feel a little coincidental? Yes. Do I give a shit? No. Does anybody else give a shit? No. He rocks.
But you know what's crazy? You know what the craziest aspect of this is? Supposedly they've been dating for a few months, a couple of months at the very least. And he's not starting to now get overexposed until it became public.
Yeah.
That's just bonkers.
I also think that like he's been being put in these positions for a while now. It's just everyone's calling it out.
He's getting a main event. Admittedly, he's getting a one-on-one main event against Hangman Adam. I love him. I have loved him since he was Black Taurus in TNA. I have been repping this guy for the longest time. But let's not say it isn't a little funny that as soon as the news comes out, we're really seeing him not all over the show, but in a very prominent role.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind.
I don't mind. I don't care how we get there. Let him Triple H his way to the top. I don't care.
I mean, also, Tony Khan seems to like him too because he went to bat for him getting the fight in Arena Mexico last week. So
yeah.
I don't just think it's a Mercedes thing. I think Tony just genuinely likes the dude as
what's crazy?
A person, a wrestler, whatever.
You know what's crazy? I'm pretty sure because I've seen parts of his face now. I think he's a really good-looking guy.
No, so rumors are he looks like Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, what's the over/under on how long he's going to be wearing this mask?
I think he's going to keep it.
I hope so, but maybe there's money in him not having a mask.
But that mask is so fucking cool.
It's cool, but if you get it, is it a main event mask? That's the question.
Maybe. I think it's cool enough. But Maria's saying my CEO is a star maker and Mercedes elevates people. You got a point, Sting. All right. Moving on to the match itself. Towards the end of this, following a tombstone pile driver counter by Mortos, where he just spiked Hangman on his head. I don't know how they didn't die.
That was beautiful. What a great counter.
Yeah, right? Which was cool, too, because I believe it was Hangman was in a tombstone position. Oh, yeah, and then Mortos hits that, tombstone, lung blower thing, which is awesome. Yeah. And then he went for it again, and Hangman flipped it and was going to tombstone Mortos, and then Mortos just spiked him, which was, I don't know how he did that. Yeah. Awesome. Anyway, Mortos then got Page up, but Hangman was able to counter with a poison rana, which I don't think I've ever seen him hit. Page then apparently you go to Mexico for a week and everyone's hitting ranas. Page then followed with a rolling elbow strike before heading out to the apron for the buckshot lariat, which he then hit for the win. So before we get into the post-match shenanigans, James, I really like this. It wasn't really that long. I wish I had a few more minutes, but it was very hard hitting. It's something that stood out to me outside of that ending sequence with all the tombstones and the counters was Hangman missed his moonsault because Mortos dodged it and then got back to the ring and hit a tornado. I don't think I've ever seen Hangman, I don't want to say ever miss it because he probably has, but I don't think I've ever seen him miss and then not hit it later in the match. So I thought that was a kind of a unique thing that stood out to me. That and the Poison Rana. But this was cool. It was hard hitting, and it was really nice, circumstances aside, to see Mortos get a really high profile match like this.
Yeah. I enjoyed the matchup quite a bit. I agree with you. I was watching it and I was thinking this isn't getting enough time, and then it ended and I was like, quick match, something's gonna happen afterwards, and of course. But I enjoyed it. I like seeing Hangman wrestle. Crazy, right? Crazy thing. I like seeing Hangman wrestle, and I like watching Mortos. I think he's real neat. I think he's real swell. So this was a fun matchup. It was hard hitting, but also flippy, which is a nice combo.
Much like Mortos himself.
There was one thing I noted, because it's not the first time I've seen it, and I feel like Hanger needs to come up with something else. He hit his discus lariat into the setup for the buckshot lariat.
Yeah, and he'll do that and then use the momentum to go to the outside onto the apron.
I just feel like a smaller clothesline into a bigger clothesline isn't necessarily the way it should go. I think there should be another setup move, which there often is.
Yeah, but did he hit I don't think he hit a lariat. I think he hit the discus short arm.
No. All right. You know what? I'm willing to say maybe I did misinterpret it. I could have sworn he did hit the clothesline.
It was the rolling elbow strike.
All right,
according to my notes.
I'll give it a rewatch for sure. But I kept thinking to myself, mini finish into a big finish isn't always the right way to go. I wasn't offended by it, but I was like, there could have been something a little smoother here. But again, maybe I was wrong and it wasn't a clothesline.
Yeah, I'm trying to run through Twitter and see if I can find it.
We got a producer boy.
All right, missed the thing. Of course, I have the lariat itself and not the 2 seconds before it. Oh, here we go. All right, Poison Rana. Nope, not the whole thing. Gonyo, somebody's got to have it. Nope, nobody has it. All right.
It would definitely be on Reddit. But I'll look it up while you go over what's next.
Yeah, but either way, big fan of this match. Love seeing these guys go at it. And it's nice having... This was low-key a meat match as well, despite the flippy stuff. This was a meat match.
It was lean, but it was meaty.
Yeah. Before we jump ahead, Fernando disagreed. He thinks that Mortos should not lose the mask. And it says, what if he does both with and without the mask? One holds a title and the other's the number one contender. I mean, was he gonna Dude Love Mankind Cactus Jacket? Because I'm pretty sure that was a thread on Reddit today saying that Dude Love should have held a title and Mankind should have been upset that he wasn't allowed to challenge for it or something like that.
That's great, but honestly, we're living in the era of Gable and Americano, so that's the closer comparison right now.
Somebody on Reddit today also said, because it's been reported that Chad unfortunately has to get surgery, that they should just stick somebody else in the Americano
I
mask.
am so into that. Yeah, I saw that too, and yes, they absolutely should.
I think they said there should be Kaiser because he was kind of lurking in the background watching. That'd be really funny. Also, too, I think because Mortos is Mexican, if he loses that mask, he's not putting it back on. That's the way it goes. Unless you're Rey Mysterio.
Oh, damn it. You beat me to it. Unless you're Rey Mysterio.
Anyway, following the match, the lights very quickly went out. And when they came back on, we had the Young Bucks in the ring with Hangman in perfect position for the EVP trigger, which they then just absolutely nail him with to put him on his ass. The Death Riders, consisting of Moxley, Marina, and Yuta, don't know where Claudio's been really, then come out to pick the bones with Mox then using a chain to choke Hangman out the same way Hanger did in their Texas death match a few years ago. As Page begins to go out, the Yops then attempted to come out and make the save, but they're held at bay by the Bucks and the Death Riders, because I think Yuta having a chair definitely didn't help. And as the Ops went to arm themselves, Mox continued to choke out Hangman until Ospreay was able to come out and even the odds, sliding into the ring because everyone was concerned with the Ops getting chairs. And then that allowed the Ops a window to get into the ring themselves. So the Bucks and the Death Riders made a retreat into the crowd. And as the show was going off the air, Moxley grabbed the camera and yelled into it that on July 12th, he'll show the world what the true world champion looks like. So, James, good ending to the show. I mean, downer ending, obviously. Moxley getting the upper hand on Hanger, but you kind of need this every once in a while. I did like to call back with the chain, though. I thought that was very clever. And I also like it was written that Swerve wasn't there, so he couldn't come out to help. Ospreay took him long enough, but, shit like that happens. And, of course, the Ops continue to be involved, despite the fact that they surprisingly haven't really had a match or screen time lately, to the point where I forgot they were the Trios champs, even though I just bought their shirt, which rocks, by the way.
It is a cool shirt.
Yeah. So what did you think of all this? Because I liked it.
I enjoyed it. It feels like the right people aren't there to be there for Hanger. Like, I get Ospreay makes sense. The Ops have been on business for a while, although I don't know what they're doing. Like, they should absolutely be having a match at All In, and I don't feel like there's anything there that doesn't feel forced.
Yeah, it would have probably been maybe a rematch with the Death Riders, but Pac is presumably out for a while, and I don't know where Kota. He's MIA. I thought maybe he had like visa issues last week with Mexico, and that's why he couldn't go, but he wasn't there tonight either. So
So I don't know what's going on there. I know it's on purpose that we're keeping Kenny and Hangman away from one another. I know that.
Yeah.
But we got to get there eventually. And Hangman saved Swerve last week, right?
Unintentionally, but yes.
Swerve is going to return the favor. He just is.
Probably in the same thing, like unintentionally, but he does save Hangman, and eventually you'll get the stare down of the two of them being like, "Are we going to do this? Are we going to help each other, or what?" Yeah. You're getting there because the funny thing is, you are probably eventually going to have the same thing with Kenny. It's just that having it with Swerve and Kenny at the same time would probably be a lot.
Yeah,
and slightly redundant.
I'm just mentally prepared that the main event of All In is going to be absolutely overbooked and clusterfucky to the max. Yep. And I'm so excited for it. I don't care. I want it.
I think it's rough bump.
It's just going to be Rick Knox who doesn't give a shit. I want it to look like WrestleMania 40 on steroids. I want the Ops. I want the Bucks. I want Swerve. I want every Death Rider. I want the Don Callis family. I want every heel to help Mox. And I want every babyface to help Hangman. I want this to be AEW war. Just war. And it comes down to Kenny and Swerve. Or at the very least, it's probably just going to be Swerve making sure Hangman gets the win.
Yeah, I was going to say Ospreay and Swerve, but Ospreay gets taken out and Swerve is kind of the last guy standing, and he's the one who helps Hangman win.
Yes.
Gives them the little Bucks head nod.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, honestly, I think that makes sense. And considering I know so many of those people aren't really there anymore, or involved in the storyline, allow me to rephrase, but all the people that that Moxley was fucking with at the start of the Death Riders and the title reign and stuff, they should come back and help too. He had a lot of shit with Uno and Silver and Reynolds, and they could come back and help. Yeah. Private Party, I wish, but I don't know what's up with them. Top Flight, Moxley was beautiful. Just everyone just coming out. At minimum, they should all come out after and celebrate and shit. The Ding Dong, the Witch is dead, but I would like to see them involved. We've been saying this for weeks. This is going to be AEW Endgame.
Yeah.
Bring everyone. What were you expecting more? You got to bring everybody out. So, yeah, while this was a quote-unquote downer of an ending, it works perfectly. And I think most importantly, and the thing we haven't really talked about, is this is the Bucks officially turning on Hangman. They hadn't attacked him yet. And this is the first time they've gone after him, and they went after him real quick. EVP trigger straight off the bat and allowed Moxley to choke him out with a chain. So there's no going back now.
Yeah.
All right, before we get out of here, let's go to the comments. Fernando, first of all, saying that the father-son's tag title sound like a terrible idea. They would just be a gimmick, like it would just be for fun. It would be, like when MJF had the All-American Championship instead of the International All-Atlantic or whatever it was at the time. It basically just be that. Maria also was agreeing with that Thunder Rosa could be turning heel, would be pretty good. Sadie's also thought Maria also thought, I finally did it. I've been good for a couple of weeks. Maria thought that Mortos versus Hangman was very solid. And then Maria asking, are we doing a post show after All In? Yes, we will be. Absolutely, we will be doing a post show.
We will be, but there is a slight chance
you're there.
Some of us will be in Texas. I will absolutely do something, but yes, there is. We'll see how it's looking, but yes.
Yeah, as we get closer, we'll know more, because I said this because you weren't here the night, James, that I think I don't know if it was the night they announced Kenny versus Okada. You weren't here. And I was just laughing that you were going to have to spend all the money to fly to Texas to go see the match.
I made that promise to myself years ago, and
you made it here on the pod.
Yep.
I honestly wasn't expecting you here, at least. I wasn't expecting you here. I was expecting you to go there. Fernando is suggesting that they should scrap the trios titles if they're not going to be defended on big shows. Just get rid of them and make room for the women's tag team championships. I don't necessarily disagree. It would be disappointing to get rid of the trios titles, but if you're adding another set of titles, as we're just getting rid of, or unifying two of them to lessen the amount of titles we have. The trios titles haven't been in a big storyline, or really part of a big storyline, since the Elite against Death Triangle.
Yeah,
they've been kind of an afterthought. Even when the Death Riders were holding them, they had the titles, but they were just kind of shiny things for them to have. Yeah. And the only big thing that came of it was the Ops won the titles, and now same thing applies. Like, the Ops have them, but they're not doing anything with them.
Yeah.
So I know part of that is they're wrapped up in the Death Riders storyline, and considering that those would probably be their opponents and they have injuries, the Death Riders do, I can see what that is. But we haven't even gotten a follow-up on Hook. Like, the Ops are doing nothing, which is weird.
Yeah, bonkers.
Yeah. Maria is saying that she thinks Darby makes a surprise appearance to help Hangman. Probably.
Yeah, I think it's a guarantee.
He's off the mountain. So he's been back apparently for a while. He looks to be in great shape. He has a beard, or at least he did when he was on Everest. So I wouldn't be surprised if he zip lines his way in. And then for some reason, I just wrote orange. I guess because I mentioned Pope, because that would relate to Taz, which would relate to orange because he owns the color. But James, that was Dynamite. I thought this was a good show. Maybe not their best showing, but the last few weeks have been so amazing because it was Fyter Fest, and then it was Summer Blockbuster, and then it was Grand Slam Mexico, which my opinion of has, I think, gotten better from my post show last week. I was a little down on it, but everyone seemed to love it. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, it was a little bit better than I thought. Maybe I just don't love the insanity of those Lucha Libre tags. But digressing off of that, still a very good episode. Those 2 4-way matches, I think, by far the best matches on the card.
I agree.
But I think every match delivered. There was surprisingly only the 4 of them, which I think allowed the 4-ways to get a lot of time, which they definitely needed. But Hangman versus Mortos was very good and absolutely did what it needed. And Jet Speed against Jet Speed against there was 5 matches. Fox and Ricochet, good match, did what it needed. And the opening match of it was Christian and Lee against Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. Gotta be specific with your Christians there. Now, so against Will and Swerve also did what they needed. So everything, all the matches were good tonight, all the promos were good tonight. Everything did what it needed as we get closer to All In.
No, absolutely. And it's only going to get bigger because next week we're going to get the 300th episode. And I think they were sort of doing a lot of prep for next week and for All In. So this was a rough position for the show to be in, but they still got a lot done. I agree with you. Both Fatal 4-Ways were just absolutely awesome. Just really fun matchups. And 2 Dynamites left to All In. It feels like despite how long it's been, it feels like we're in sprint mode now.
Yeah.
We're just rushing to it. And do we know what the card is so far? Like, we know it's Tony Mercedes, we know Mox Hanger, Kenny Okada,
The 2 Casino Gauntlets.
But
I don't think anything else is really official.
And that's crazy.
We're projecting Jet Speed against the Hurt Syndicate, but I don't think that's necessarily official yet.
Yeah, we're projecting Cole versus Fletcher, but that's not official yet.
We do have the Bucks against Swerve and Ospreay.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tony made that official later on the show, but that was a challenge that was laid out, so that's basically going to be made official for the E titles, which is hilarious and sick. It's slowly shaping up, but it's surprising how little we actually know about the card with 2 weeks left to go.
I think we know that the 3 matchups that we're getting, the 3 singles matchups that we're getting, did most of the work in terms of moving tickets. Kenny Okada, apparently, once that match was announced, like 1,400 seats were sold in a week after. Mercedes Tony and Hanger Mox those are blockbuster matchups.
So you don't really need much else to sell a card with.
No, you really don't. Everything else is just icing, cherry on top.
Yep. And Maria making a good point here. Last week, Dynamite popped one of the highest ratings they've had in a long time, which is cool. I have to imagine some of that is a bit of a cross-pollination with CMLL fans as well, but we'll take it. Hopefully they liked our guys and they're sticking around here at AEW. And they're thankfully pointing out that he meant Orange Cassidy, and when he said Orange, because he was somebody that really messed with the Death Riders to start, and somebody who could show up to help Hangman. But unfortunately, would he tear his bicep?
I have no idea what he did.
I think he tore his bicep. He tore something in his arm. It was his pec or his bicep. And then somehow finished that 4-way match, which is insane. But he's going to be out for a minute. And I know he's been out for a while now, but I think he'll still be out a little bit longer. Maybe he could show up and just, do the kicks or something. But I don't think he'd be able to get very physical, would be my guess. Yeah. And Maria also saying, I prefer the long build-up for pay-per-views, unlike WWE, when they have pay-per-views, or PLEs, every 2 weeks with rush builds. And I can see why that is. I think AEW at the moment kind of has a good balance where they kind of do a pay-per-view almost like every once and a half or a month and a half. Like, it averages out that way. Yeah. Sometimes it's 1 month and then it's one the next month, and then maybe it's 2 months after that, or 3. Yeah. So I like how that goes. It's a little maybe inconsistent in the timing they have, but it allows certain things to breathe, especially in like this gap where we're going into their biggest show of the year. But then we're gonna have All In a week late, or All Out, a week later. So there's that kind of goofy build there. But yeah, when you build for the monthly pay-per-view, you have to book much differently, and it sometimes doesn't necessarily let stories breathe. Although I think that Triple H has done kind of a good job of, because he limits how many matches are on every card, that for the most part he will maybe have a feud go 2 months and then put it on a pay-per-view instead of just having the 4-week builds. But that's a different discussion for a different show. And agreeing with me, yes, Orange doesn't have to wrestle. He just has to help. But like I said, I don't think he'll be too physical.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, hit Yuta with the chair. If anybody's going to take out Yuta, it should be him. But I don't know if he could swing with the bicep, man. It might just be he hits the kicks and distracts him, and then somebody else takes Yuta out with a chair.
Yeah.
It might just have to be something like that.
We shall see.
Yep, we shall see. And on that note, I would like to thank everyone so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. We would appreciate it if you liked and subscribe. If you like the episode, it lets us know that you're enjoying what we're doing here on the pod, and we can and will continue to do it. And if you subscribe, you continue to get all the great stuff here on the channel. Obviously, we will be back here next week for another riveting episode of Dynamite. James has the Gym Pack Zone in the shop still, I think.
Like I said, we're the upcoming pay-per-view is going to be the relaunch of the Gym Pack Zone.
Which one is it again? Because somebody asked me.
I think it's hard to kill.
Okay, and then after that, there's the one in UBS.
Yes.
Next month,
July 20th. But
Yeah.
we'll be back before then.
Okay, so keep an eye out for the Gym Pack Zone in the next couple of weeks. We'll get you a confirmed date when it happens, probably here on this show. And we'll continue to cover big events in WWE, New Japan, and other places as well. If you want to follow us on our social medias, and you're here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, what am I missing? Blue Sky and Facebook. Links all in the description below. If you're watching us over on Facebook or on Twitter and you want to follow us in some other places, Twitter is at marketdown_pod. Instagram is at marketdownpod. YouTube.com/marketdown3665. Blue Sky is marketdownpod.bsky.social. Or as always, you can just search Marketdown Podcast into any of your social media platforms. James, any last words before we go?
It's very hot out, folks. Make sure when you walk your pets, you don't put them on the hot concrete, the hot cement. If it's hot for you, it's hotter for them.
Yep. Thank you, appreciate you stopping by as always, along with Maria and Fernando and everyone else who watches here on the pod. Don't worry, James is supposed to rain tonight, so hopefully it breaks up a little. Maybe even gets into back in the 70s tonight here in New York.
Ooh,
but yeah, for those of you in the heat wave, stay cool, do your best, and stay hydrated. But for James Asante, my name is Nick Cummings. Thank you so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. Have a good one, everyone.